This mimer is from Shabbos Parshas Nosai, Beis Sivin, Tov Shin Daled Mem, which was that year like this past Shabbos, which would be the Shabbos before Shavuos. And we already did the mimer of Usfartem Lachem last week. Now we're going to do this. And the mimer that was the Rebbe said on Shavuos itself was a mimer that also is really a bit in continuation of this mimer. Plus, this week is going to be Parshas Nosai, and we have 40 years from this mimer, so it gives us a very special energy and strength to what it speaks about here, the idea of blessing and prayer, etc. Additionally, we have some, like every mimer, many interesting things. So let's begin. Sevarechu b'nei Yisrael Omer lahem. Yevarechacha goymer yoyer goymer yisa goymer v'samo shmiel b'nei Yisrael v'nei avarchem. We have the mitzvah that God gives, especially for the Kohanim, for the priestly family, and Aaron and his descendants, to bless the Jewish people. And the mitzvah is as follows: so you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them, may you be blessed, may it shine, and may the radiance of God be upon you, Yisa. And then I will place my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. There are many discourses from our Rabbeim that begin with this verse. Yet we do find many of these mamorim both on this verse and about the matters discussed here, from the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Rebbe, Rabbi Shmuel, the son of the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Rebbe said this 40 years ago. The Rebbe said that this year, meaning the year 5744, it's 150 years from his birth, and it was exactly. I want to point out that the Rebbe said this mimer on the second day of Sivan, which was exactly a month after his birthday, which is the second day of Iyar. Now, when a baby is born, once they're 30 days old, that means that they are a child that will that's healthy, etc. That's when a pigeon ben could be made, and they're not. I don't want to sound, God forbid, morbid, but if a child would pass away before 30 days old, it's called a nafel, a child who sort of didn't make it out of birth, and even the mourning laws would be different, etc. We should talk about happy things. But I just want to point out that this is 30 days after the birthday. And so now this year, when we're learning now, it's 190 years since the birth of the Rebbe Marash. But here the Rebbe says it's 150 years of his birth to Misper, so Gimel Pamim Nun. 150 is 3 times 50. What's the significance? The Rebbe says Gimel Pamim Yovel Hanikra Elam. So it's 3 jubilees. Every jubilee is a yovel of 50 years, and a yovel is called la'olam. Something is eternal. It's an eternity. It lasts forever. So here the Rebbe says it has the eternity 3 times. So it's like chazaka. It's in a strong sense this idea of the yovel. V'hainu shenyon shalad mor marash. Now what was special and what stands out? The Rebbe Marash nimshach le'elim be'efen the Gimel Pamim Yovel. What he stands for is now within the world 3 times in the format of Yovel, which is eternity. Ubefrat acher histalkusei asher oz kol pulos asher pol eil l'mayla. Especially the Rebbe speaking in 5744 that this is after the passing of the Rebbe Marash. So he says, after the passing of the tzaddik, then everything that he did and that he accomplished during his lifetime, oila l'mayla, goes up. V'achakach yeredes lamata, and then it comes back down. Upayeles yishuis bekerev ha'oretz, and it's able to affect salvation in the innards and the midst of the earth, in the lowest levels. So which is an interesting thing to point out. Now we're also within 30 days of the 30th yahrzeit of the Rebbe, and here the Rebbe is talking about the Rebbe Maharash, that after a certain period of time, he's affecting things over here more. Now, one of the main slogans and lessons, primary lessons, that the Rebbe Maharash said, Die Welt sagt, dass man kennt darunter darf man rüber. Und ich halt, dass man darf lechatchila rüber. So the world says that if you can't get there by going under, then you should go over. But I say, in the first place, you should go over the top. Do it in the best way possible right at the outset, right from the out of the gate. And just like his manner of serving continues after his passing, and it continues to have its effect on earth, and most certainly about this idea, this lesson, this slogan, and this way of life. Now this is not just something the way you should do things in your regular matters that you have to attend to in life, but also in Torah. And on the contrary, it says that God looked in the Torah and created the world. So the Torah is like the blueprint of the world. Move on. Then everything in the world is like it is in Torah, because the Torah was the blueprint, how he created it. If that's the case, then it follows that this idea of, in the first place, go over the top, this also applies to Torah study. Now the Rebbe asks, but wait a minute, we have to understand. I understand why in worldly matters it has to be, in the first place, give it your best shot and do it like this. Do it in the best way possible. Like it says in our sages taught, that there are, when we work to make a living, and then sometimes people do something which is seemingly very lucrative, and it doesn't work out so well. Other times people do something which is maybe seemingly simple, and they make what's called a killing. They make a load of money. Why is it? Because the parnasa, the way the money comes, is with the blessing of God. So there, in the Gemara there in Kedushin, the Gemara says, so there it's talking about teaching a trade to one's children, etc., to do an honest trade, and so some of the trades don't seem like they're so lucrative. So he says, look, you pray to the one who's yispalel l'misha ha'isha shaloi. Pray to the one who owns all the wealth. That's the God Almighty. So, in other words, you have to do your best. So when it comes to the worldly matters, you'll pray, you'll get, and that's it. But you could just do what you could. Whereas in Torah it says you have to work very hard. So that seems more the idea of toiling. It says you have to work hard, and then you will succeed, and that could be believed. You have to work hard to get it. So in worldly matters, it doesn't seem like you'd have to work so hard. If God gives you the blessing, you're going to get the blessing no matter what. But in Torah, you're not going to get it automatically. Like they're here, I believe, like the Rebbe is saying, lechatchila Rebbe would be getting it more the easy way, but going for it just in the way that it's just going to come. And here you'd have to work harder. So here the Rebbe continues. In Torah, you also have to do it first in that way, that however it comes. And that means go for the best right away. That is what this lesson is all about. Not that it has to also be that you're going to get over. In addition to the simpler way of doing it. You have to get over and go to the top way possible, the highest way, to do that in the first place. And when you come to the fulfillment of that type of service and it succeeded, all you have to do is give an effort and try, and then you'll be able to be successful in this way. But it also has to be the way things are done, in an orderly fashion. Even though, like the Rebbe Marash said, if you can't do it under, which is seemingly an easier way, then you have to go for the what's seemingly tougher but over the top. I say go like that in the first place. Don't do it in its simplest fashion. The Marash said you have to go for the top way right away. Because he was the prince of his generation, the leader, this goes to everybody in the generation and to subsequent generations. So that means it's a lesson for us. So that we have to not just straggle along, but we have to, right at the outset, go for the best way possible. And then you have to work hard and toil with things that are even on a higher level. And then you keep on growing. You go for something very high, and then you work hard and you get even higher. And then the result will be much more, not even in proportion, but much higher than how much work you put in, because you went for the top to start with. Now that I was getting back to what we started with, the idea of the priestly blessing. And the Rabbi Marash learns in the specifics here. It says in the blessing, God shall bless you and keep you, guard you. The Pirish Rashi, Misifri, Rashi's commentary explains this based on the Medrash. What is he going to guard you from? What is he going to keep you? He is going to guard you from, first we'll just say from the mazikin. Mazikin are loosely translated, it really means things that are destructive forces, and it's also been translated as demons. So things that are very destructive forces. So what's the connection between here? God should bless you and keep you. Keep you from what? From demons, from destructive forces. First of all, if you have to be guarded from forces of destruction, then you need that first. And here we understand that if we get the blessing, then it'll also get the keeping, the guarding. And just in general, we have to understand, why did he say that you have to be guarded from the mazikin, from the demons? The Torah speaks about what's common. That's how the sages spoke, whatever is common. The demons are not something which are found in places which are inhabited by people. As is well known. The Talmud already speaks about that. The demons were only in places that were uninhabited, etc. And also, the verse finishes by saying, and I will place my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Now the Gemara has a discussion. The Tanya, the Gemara brings the Braisa. How do we know that the Kohen who gives the blessing, that the Kohen himself is also blessed? He's giving a blessing to everybody else, but how does he get blessed? So Rabbi Kiva says that because Abraham was told, and I will bless those that bless you, so then if the Kohanim give the blessing, then God blesses them also. But Rabbi Yishmael says, because at the end of this whole verse it says, and I will bless them. And then the Gemara there goes on to say, there's another lengthy discussion there. But Rabbi Shmuel himself was a Kohen, and he said a slogan that says, the Kohen is helping the other Kohenim. Because he's saying by them giving the blessing, then they're getting the blessing too. Because it says, but it says, well, what's the big thing? They're just having a discussion. How do we know what happens? But that we know what happens, there's no argument. The only question is, where does it come from? So the Kiva says it comes from, it says, that I will bless those that bless you. He says, because it says, so then they said, well, the Kohen is now helping his brethren, the Kohenim. But wait a minute, according to Rabbi Kiva, they're also getting blessed. So, again, Rabbi Kiva the answer that it's the same as with the blessing of what the children of Israel get. So it's more detailed. What does it matter if God is going to bless them afterwards or at the same time as the rest of the Jews, at the same way, at the same time? So Umabayar calls it behektim ha'efresh ben bracha l'tfilah. So now the Rebbe Marash goes into, in general, what is the difference between a blessing and a prayer? The bracha hi meloshen hamshacha. A blessing is from the term that means to draw something. Kemoy hamavrich es hagefen. Like it, there's a similar term that when you are working with vines, so the way the vines work is that it has to go under the ground and then it comes back up out of the ground, and then usually it hangs on something and it goes back under the ground and it comes back out. So this is called mavrich hasages, and it's drawing. It has to draw up its water out of the ground, and that's how the vine gets its nourishment. So it's being the word is mavrich. It's not a regular type of planting, and it's not a regular type of replanting, etc., transplanting, but it's this word. So this is the idea of drawing, and it's the same term like beracha in Hebrew, which means blessing. That means that somebody who's giving a blessing is not bringing something new. He's bringing a blessing that already exists, but now he's drawing it down that you should get it. So he's bringing it from its root and from its source. What is prayer? Prayer, you ask God for a new thing. Something which is not there, you ask God to recreate. And we spoke about this several months back in some of the other memorim. And like the term is in several of the prayers that we say, Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will. A new will should be created that God should now draw down. Maybe if until now it wasn't supposed to be this way, but please create that it should be this way. May it be your will as such and such. It should be a new will. And that's the way it is for all prayer. The idea of prayer is to affect something new. So each one has an advantage over the other. A blessing, you don't have to do something new. Somebody who gives a blessing becomes the owner, so to speak, over the blessing, to draw it down from its root and its source. And therefore it's easier. And everyone has this power to bless somebody. But the advantage of prayer is even in the root and the source, it's not like this. Maybe over there at one point it says, God forbid, somebody should be sick. So you ask God, why didn't you make a new will that this guy should be healthy? The prayer affects that there should be a new will and a new drawing something down in a new way. Now the Rebbe goes off on a side explanation to something, to a well-known story. And he says, according to this idea of understanding the difference between prayer and blessing, we can understand in the story that happened when Jacob was blessing the children of Joseph. And we all know the story, that when he came, the older one was on the right and the younger one was on the left. And then Jacob went and he switched his hands so that he put his right hand on the younger one and he put the left hand on the older one. And then Yosef said, "This is the father, what's going on here? This is the older one." And put the other hand. He says, "No, he's also going to be great, but this one is going to be greater." Let's see what the Rebbe says here. Okay, super big suvim, like it says in the scripture. Jacob put his right hand on the head of Ephraim, and his left hand on the head of Menashe. And Joseph told him, this one, meaning referring to Menashe, is the firstborn. So put your right hand on his head. In other words, Jacob had already set them up, and Joseph had already set them up that when he was facing Jacob, that the older one was on his own left, so that he should be on his father's right. And his father switched the hands around, so he told his dad, "Well, no, I have them in the right order." He says, No, I know what I'm doing. So he says, "Vayemoyin Aviv," and his father Jacob refused. Vayemer, and he said, "Gam hu yilom v'gam hu yigdol." He will also be a nation, and he will also be great. But his younger brother will be greater than him. And his children will be a greater people, and the fulfillment of the people. It's not understood what happened here. The whole story is tough to understand. Joseph asked Jacob to bless his sons. So now he could have looked. Let's say Jacob saw that this is what was happening. This is what's coming down the pike. That Ephraim was going to be greater than Menashe. But since Menashe was older, so Jacob could have said, "Hey, Menashe, you should become great." And you get him something that's even greater. And if it was impossible for Jacob to switch these things around through blessing, so then what was Yosef thinking anyway? He should have left it alone. As a matter of fact, and the Rebbe infers here that Yosef also must have known that Menashe wouldn't be as great as Ephraim. That the younger brother would be greater. And especially since it says that these are the offspring of Jacob, Joseph, and the Chazal, the sages teach us that means that Yosef told us Yankiv, that Joseph was the primary one of the offspring of Jacob. He was like him the most. He looked like him, etc. And it says, and Jacob gave over to Joseph all of his Torah, all of his knowledge, everything. So certainly he told him also that Ephraim's going to be greater than Menashe. He gave him over everything. So Yosef already knew this. So why did he tell his father to switch it around? But now according to what we said, that a blessing is just to draw down from what already is there. The reason that Jacob could not bless as Menashe, he couldn't make Menashe be even greater than it was destined to be. The blessing was just to draw down what there already was from the source of Menashe, whatever was already available. And therefore, Yaakov was going to bring down what there was for him. And Jacob was able to see that in his source, in the source of Menashe, Hine Hagam Shu B'Cheir, although he was the firstborn, V'gam Hu Yigel, and he would still be great. Mikol Mokem Yachiv Akotan Yigel Mimenu, but nevertheless, the younger son would be greater than him. Omnam. Yosef Bikish Yaakov Yispal Avura, but now Joseph wasn't happy with that. He wasn't satisfied. So he requested that Jacob also pray, and therefore he would change things around. He could say a prayer that Menashe should then be greater. The Keshem Sheyeshev Bikish Yaakov Inyan Zeh Shezeu Inyan Hatfilah V'Lo Asman, that Al Derech Zeratz Yosef Sheyankov Yispal Avur Menashe Shigl Ephraim. So just like Yosef asked his father to bless them in general, he was really also asking him to pray for them, and to pray to issue forth a new will to the way things should be. Like it explains in Chassidus Halo Asman, in terms of relationships, that the what is evoked, let's say by the female, to evoke that there should be something forthcoming from the male, etc. In other words, to request more from God. Al derech zerotza Yosef sheYaakov yispalel avur Menashe. So Joseph wanted Jacob to pray for Menashe shigel me'Ephraim, that he should be greater, make a new thing. Through prayer, he could make something new, not the way that it was going to come out ultimately. So why didn't Jacob say, yes, sure, Joseph, let's do that, let's pull this off? It's not what he said. He said, no, don't worry. The younger son is going to nevertheless be great. Even though through his prayer he could have made Menashe be greater. Because Jacob then was in the standpoint of blessing to draw it down the way it is already. And he didn't want to make something new. Now, the Rebbe doesn't say here why didn't he want to make something new, other than he was now in a situation, a matzav of bracha, of bringing out what the way it's destined to be. And this may be similar to other tzaddikim. Sometimes tzaddikim said that they have to leave it the way it is. And that's why we see this with Moses, and Moses, finally God tells Moses, after he prayed 515 times, please don't pray a 516th time that you want to go to Israel, because then I'm gonna change. So please leave it as it is. And Moses, of course, left it, and Moses is ultimately stays with the Jewish people in the exiles. And it says Moses, the first redeemer, will be the ultimate redeemer. He'll be with the Mashiach to redeem everybody. So from all of this, we understand the greatness of the priestly blessing. It has both the advantages of blessing and prayer. Although it's a blessing which is drawing down, you don't have to do something to make something new, you don't have to do something special. But it draws down from a very high source. That source is even higher than where you can get to with prayer. Just prayer is a different method. The Maila is drawing down from the source within God, which is higher than even the whole chain of creation, and God imbuing the worlds in the way each world can accept. That's why it says the name of God, the four-lettered name, should be the one who blesses you, specifically. Because that name is higher than all the creation. And that's why he continues with saying, may God uplift his radiance, his shine, his face to you. The inyan zehu miloshin masa ponim. The uplifting of the face means the inwardness and what comes forth. That's even more than what would be in the orderly fashion and the norm. This is something greater, something higher. Uplifting the head, like we've spoken about, to pick up the highest and to bring that to even a higher level. Raising and uplifting. The one that is being blessed is uplifted higher than all of the all of the creation and all of the, once God is in His creation, He's out of essence and He's in creation mode, and here we're being lifted up to higher than that. This is what it means, say it to them. God makes the koyanim, the priestly family, the messengers, the emissaries, to bless the children of Israel. Like the simplest part of the blessing of the priestly blessing of the Birchas Kohanim, they bless the children of Israel on behalf of God, by His mission, by His task that He placed on them. So they're drawing down God's blessing. The Rebbe points out something else. Someone says, this Kohen, I know him, he's not the greatest, yeah, he does such and such. So what? Well, he should go up and give a blessing. Actually, the Talmud says if a Kohen goes up, you have to let him go, even if you think that he's not such a great Kohen. But here's the reason why. Because it's not what his deeds do. It's just by mere fact that he's a descendant of Aaron, he has this blessing and he could draw it down. That's how God said it works. It's not, it doesn't matter what his personal situation may be. The one who's giving the blessing, the priest. Okay, of course not if he's been defiled and he's not allowed to go up. For instance, if he married someone who he's not allowed to marry. The priestly blessing is one of the things that has to only be said in the holy tongue. Shema, for instance, you could say in a different language, in any language. But the priestly blessing has to be in Lashon Kodesh, in the holy tongue. The Kohen is only an intermediary. It's not him blessing. So he doesn't even have to understand. He just have to have those words coming out of his mouth. The blessing is the blessing of God, which is higher than the chain of creation. And within this there are several levels, many levels. The mitzvah is, like the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe enumerate in the halacha, to bless Israel every single day. In Israel they actually do it in certain places, in Jerusalem, etc. Nevertheless, the blessing in the weekday is not the same as the blessing on the days of Shabbos and Yom Tov. And then the highest level of this blessing came in the temple, in the Beis HaMikdash. And then in the period when they used to bless in the temple and they used to say the name, the way it was only pronounced in the long, very special version of the name, which ended at a certain point. But when that name was given, that the name of God was enumerated, the way it's written out and the way each letter is spelled out by the name of its letters, etc., etc. And now we can understand why one of the effects of this blessing is that it'll guard you from the damaging forces and the demons. What are these damaging forces? They're on a very low level. Why? That means because they're rooted, as we know, something which is very high falls down very low, like the brick wall, right? The top bricks fall away the furthest from where it was standing. Since this blessing comes so high, then it also goes to this low spot where even the demons are. And then it guards us from them. It cancels how they could them from being able to do anything, and it's certainly to do any harm. Like any guarding is. Doesn't mean that we take that which is being guarded away from these forces. Ella, when they are in that spot, if they're in a place where there are demons, we are guarded from them. They can't do any harm. Now we're getting back to what we mentioned from the Talmud, this argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. It's not so much of an argument. Even there are many arguments that each person says an opinion and they're not really arguing. But even if they are saying something differently, but they're both a version of the word of the living God, and therefore they're both something in Torah. The Rabbi Kiva learns that the Kohanim are blessed because it says that those who bless are blessed. That would mean that the blessing of the Holy One, blessed be He, to the Kohanim themselves, who are giving the blessings themselves, it doesn't have the advantage of the way the priest, the Kohanim themselves bless. Elahi brachas tam. It's a blessing from God. Because they're blessing everyone else, He blesses them. Like all the other blessings that are just drawing from the root and the source of that which is getting blessed. So the Rebbe makes a distinction here. So therefore, according to Rabbi Kiva, they are getting blessed, but they're not getting the Birchas Kohanim explicitly. And that's why what Rabbi Yishmael says, that they are getting the Birchas Kohanim. Rabbi Yishmael learns it from the verse that I will place my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them, like Al Rebbe explains, Dani oisius ayin. The word ani, which means I, has the same as the letters ayin, which means nothing. So that means v'koi al sfiras hamalchus kifi shehi b'chinas keser malchus l'maylim seder shtalshlus. That is such a high level within God that it appears to be nothing to us. It's in other words, in its purest form, it's the level of malchus, which is higher than the whole chain of creation, and it's within the high level of keser, the crown, that we've discussed that level, and therefore the blessing is coming from that source. Therefore, the blessing that comes to the Kohanim is rooted in the same place where the blessing for the rest of Klal Yisrael is coming from. The blessing of the Kohanim is the same then as the blessing of the children of Israel. It's not a different blessing, like according to Rabbi Kiva. If that's the case, then that's why they said Rabbi Shmuel the Kohen is helping his brethren the Kohanim, because he says that they're getting the same blessing that everyone else is getting, not just a different blessing. And the blessing that comes to the Kohanim is also from higher than the chain of creation, which is the level of the blessing that they are blessing everyone else. And now the Rebbe says, it should be fulfilled with us, this whole idea that the Kohen helps the Kohen. Shekadosh Baruch Hu, what does he mean here? The God Almighty, the Holy One, blessed be He, is also called a Kohen. Like it says in the Gemara, that your God is a Kohen. He is also a priest. Who Yisayeh Libnei Yisrael. Then it says Kana Messiah Kana. The Kohen helps the Kohen. So the Kohen, which is God, helps the other Kohen. The Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, Shehem Amechas Kohanim. They are called the nation of Kohanim, like it says. And we're coming up to Matan Torah, where we're told, God said, "Va'atem tiyu li mamlechas Kohanim." You should be for me a kingdom of priests of Kohanim. Siyu b'chol inyonim hatzrichim, and what's the help and everything that's necessary. V'yad l'siyu achi ikri, and to the most important, primary type of help that we need, to be in the b'chol tzarosam lo yitzor. That whenever a Jew has problems and grief and pain and anguish, it pains God. And it's painful for him also. B'tzar asagolos, primarily the pain and the anguish of the exile. V'yoytz min hagolos b'korav, when we go out of the exile very soon. V'kiv she'keinim's rizenheim, and it says, in the sages teaches that the Kohanim have great alacrity; they're very quick. So then this whole help will also be quickly. Like the Rambam rules that immediately they are redeemed. It says with Yisrael Leisin Tshuva Miyadim Golim. Here the Rebbe doesn't even mention that piece. He just says the result, that they're immediately redeemed. And we'll come to the next parsha, after Parshas Nosei, which is when you will uplift the candles, kindle the candles. Ani mara lachem neiris tzion. like it says in the Medrash, based on the beginning of Parshat Ba'aloischa, that if you will light the candles, I will light for you, and I will show you the candles of Zion. Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi, in the third temple, Mikdash Adonai Kenyan Yedecha, the temple which is formed by the hands of God, Baru Imenan Ishmaya, flying there on the clouds of the heaven in a very hastily fashion, like it says in the verse in Daniel. With the coming of our righteous Mashiach speedily in our days, actually so, l'chaim.